The Christmas story completely flips the script on what we think is and isn't significant. If you read the Christmas story and only see objects, you have missed the intention of Christmas. If you see the Christmas story and only think of angels' wings, you have missed the message of Christmas. If you read the Christmas story and only think about what it was like to be Joseph, you've missed the message of Christmas, because the message is meant to go much deeper than history. It is meant to give you significance for the areas in your life that may not seem significant. I don't really know what significant is when you're in it. It's true. I read this passage at least, I've been a pastor 16 years, at least 16 times every Christmas, and paid attention to everything in the passage except where stuff happened. It was only in preaching last week that I noticed this parallelism in the passage. I'm going to show it to you real quick. Just let me teach for a minute, and then I'm going to declare over your life what God said. Something good is coming from this. But first, let me teach you. It said in verse 1 of Matthew, chapter 2, verse 1, and I bet you knew this already, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. But then it said, if you go all the way to verse 15, out of Egypt I called my son. And then if you go even further than that, go all the way further than that, all the way to verse 23, that one says, he was called a Nazarene. Now, I highlighted all of those for you because I know you've got a lot on your mind, and I know you've still got a big list of things that you have to do over the next couple of weeks. But I don't want you to miss this, that you can read the Bible. I mean, just all your life hear about the Christmas story and miss the significance of, now, you probably know what happened. Jesus was born. You even know what happened after that. He died. You even know what happened after that. He didn't stay dead very long. You can know all of that and completely miss the significance of born in Bethlehem, out of Egypt, and called a Nazarene. Maybe the reason I skipped all of this so long in reading the story is I, it's a confession, have no sense of direction whatsoever. I turn on my GPS to get to my mom's house for dinner on Wednesday night. She lives in Charlotte. And just in case, I could do it without it, but it just comforts me to have the GPS. And I remember a time before Christ when there was no GPS. I remember the first time that Holly and I got in a big fight in our marriage was her navigating to me over the phone. It was in that dark period right between when you had a phone in your car, but you didn't have GPS in your car. And that was a very dark time. It was like the Advent season for us as we were waiting for the deliverer. And then she bought me a TomTom for Christmas. Now the TomTom, we don't have time for all this historical background. The TomTom was a GPS system, but the maps had to be manually loaded. So there were occasions where the map would not update and you were driving according to an old map. I don't even have time to preach about that, because that is some of y'all right now going off of an old map of who you used to be before Christ and still acting like you. Anyway, let's see. Last Christmas, this is what I was going to say. Last Christmas, Holly and I have a little tradition. We do Christmas with the kids, and then we go have Christmas for ourselves. We usually like to go to Charleston. It's close enough where I'm from. I feel the low country vibes, and get some fried shrimp. Hyman's. I don't order fried shrimp. I just eat half of hers and order grilled shrimp. It makes me feel like I ordered healthy. And we spent a few days in Charleston last year. We're driving home, and I set the GPS. I know I should be on my way back to Charlotte from Charleston by now, just to be sure. I set my GPS. But it has a thing on it that if you don't, I don't even know how this happened. It was an accident. But we told it to avoid all major highways. And I'm so enjoying talking to my bride about deep spiritual things, and, contemplating the mysteries of God, or whatever. That I don't even notice we are doing this whole trip on back roads. And, it's about 20, 30 minutes in. I'm like, when are we getting on I-26? And we figured out we had set it to no back roads. And instead of following the fact that I grew up near Charleston and I live in Charlotte for over 15 years and I should know my way, I'm blindly following this God called GPS. And I'm on these back roads now. I'm glad it happened. Because while we were driving on those back roads, and I just remembered this, I don't know if you remember this, is when I turned to Holly and said, you know what I'd like to write a song about? Because we're driving through the country, all these little towns and little churches. And it was a thought that had come to me, but I didn't think to say it until this moment. We're driving through these back roads, and I looked at her and said, I've been thinking, I kind of want to write a song called Old Church Basement. What do you think about that? She said, I think that would be awesome. She said, you mean like describing? Yeah, I said, yeah, like going back to the roots of worship. Like, I don't know how the song would go yet. I'm going to have to get Chris to help me and Brandon to help me, and I'm going to have to figure out how to write it, but it's going to say something like, the lights and stages. They're all great, but I remember when we used to praise God in the old church basement. That's what I told her I was doing. I said, I have an idea. And she said, I love it. She said, I can smell it. Because before we pastored a global EFAM, we traveled around on a little ministry team, all over little towns like we were driving through in South Carolina. So while we were driving, we talked about all the things in the old church basement: folding metal chairs, watered down punch, stale zebra cookies, and things like this. A few weeks later, the idea would become a song. The song would become the title of an album that we recorded with our friends from Maverick City Music. In this room where I'm preaching today, which at the time was empty, because we were still in the stages of the pandemic when we couldn't have people in the church regularly. And back in that corner of the room, we recorded an entire album that just a few weeks ago was nominated for a Grammy.
Woo! Well deserved.
But when I was on the back roads talking to Holly about a song I hadn't written yet, not even knowing who would help me write it or what we would use it for, I was not thinking about a Grammy. I was not thinking about an album. I wasn't really thinking about a song at first. I was just thinking, how could you be so stupid to follow a GPS down these back roads? But it serves as a lesson, and I'm kind of glad that it malfunctioned, or whatever she did to it while I wasn't looking to make it go down the back road. I'm kind of glad, because it taught me there are blessings on the back roads. There are blessings on the back roads. There are blessings in Bethlehem that you don't get in Jerusalem. There are blessings in obscurity that you don't get in popularity. There are blessings in the old church basement. There are blessings in empty rooms. There are blessings in seasons of uncertainty. There are blessings in times of your life that you're characterized by darkness.